If you're interested in the weird, mysterious, and bizarre, look no further than the Wolf at My Window podcast. A place to listen to some of the best horror stories, creepypastas, true crime cases, and urban legends from around the world. I'm your host, Ash Tyler, and today you will hear some truly terrifying tales of monstrous deceit and everyday fears come to life. But before we begin, remember to lock your doors and check under your beds, for you never know who or what may be lurking in the shadows. Click. The sound of the door closing, of the iron lock snapping into its aged steel keep, is the sweetest I've ever heard. I lean my sweat-drenched back against the freezing metal and breathe steam. Mary, my wife of only 3 days, stands beside me, her shock-white face etched in the moonlight that creeps in through the single-barred window. I can smell her amber perfume even now, even over the sting of oil and mildew. It reminds me of our first night in Reykjavik. John Dory and Sancerre at 101 Hotel. The honeymoon suite, naturally. How I blushed as I handed her the poem. How she read my words about her and laughed at what love had made me do. But that was all before the cross-wilderness trek east of Skellefell, to the remote and frozen outpost, to this. There's a resounding slam as something large hits the metal at my back, making it jump, making me jump. Outside, the shrieks of the rabid undead, or body snatchers, or whatever the hell the packs of demonic shapes truly are, diminished to growls. I glory that we've escaped, both of us, managed to get from the chaos and carnage at the ski lodge and find somewhere secure. Whatever function this room has is lost in the shadows, but with only 2 solid doors and everything barred and braced, we are safe. Trapped and alone, yes, but safe. I thought I'd lost you, I say into the dark. When I came back and you weren't in the cabin, I'm fine. Mary replies in a voice that screams all shades of everything but fine. I was out playing pool when the madness began, when the quiet of the bar room was shattered and those things rushed in. I soon learned how they superficially looked like us, how when they attacked, a hideous process of attaching to people's mouths and regurgitating down their throats, the monster's features dissolved like wax, revealing some other form beneath. How afterwards the victims recovered and rose to become just like them. It was all too horrifying to take in. With my eyes I check her over. Her auburn bob of hair, her stiff shoulders, the way her hands tremble as she forces them against her chest. Thank God you're not one of them, I say, hugging her. She returns the hug awkwardly, then withdraws, eager, it seems, to get away from the massing ghouls outside. It takes only a few steps to reach the other side of the tiny room and the second entrance. But the creatures are swarming far quicker than her, are already there too. Check it's locked, I urge, and she does, and it is. I cross to where my wife is waiting, there by the other door. She's still traumatized, her face solid and unsmiling. After this, I doubt she'll ever smile again. I take her hand, but she draws away. In the little light that remains, Her eyes are dead as stones at the bottom of the ocean. The walls are alive with the clawing of the creatures, then the frosty window, and finally we hear them crawling over the corrugated roof. I can imagine heaps of the snarling horrors covering the metal shed completely, making it appear as if it was built of bodies. Writhing, gore-soaked bodies who poured out of the night and fed upon guests and guides and huskies alike. Then I imagine them getting inside and doing that to Mary. "Don't worry, honey," I answer the thought in both our minds. "I won't let that happen. You're mine." Then I reach out, but not to her. "Sam," she says, panicking. "What are you doing?" "Honey, no, not the door!" As my mouth meets hers, she realizes. But it's too late. My face is already melting. But it's okay, I think, as the bile rises in my throat. Because the poem's safe. I have written her down, so now she will live forever. With us. John Crandall was a practical man, one not given to flights of fancy, or the sort who saw the witch's silhouette against the moon on a cold 31st October night. He did, however, have one idiosyncrasy. He was scared of the toilet. Since he was 7 years old, he had had this unsinkable fear of that porcelain entity, which his therapist said could date back to his potty training days. John pooh-poohed this idea. He knew in his heart that it was just one goddamn stupid, unreasonable, bone-cracking fear that something was one day going to grab him down into its pine-scented depths. As a result, he suffered from chronic constipation. The practice of holding his bowel movements for so long until he felt sick and his stomach hurt had throughout his 40 years made his inner tubes unreliable and his motions like concrete. John simply could not face the thought of sitting on the rim, waiting for that devil from its lair to reach up with its clawed fingers and rip the inside of his stomach out. He preferred to wait until he could wait no longer. It was one fine autumn day when the warm breeze floated in through the sash windows, and the sunlight sparkled and danced through the open patio doors, that John Crandall decided he could bear it no longer. He resented the hardening of his stomach, and the cramps he was suffering from, and the fact that it was his 40th birthday. He had met a wonderful woman, who, although tolerant of his phobia, didn't quite understand it. And the little 8-year-old kid on the television had overcome his fear of heights by paragliding with his dad from the top of New Zealand mountain range. "If he can do it, so can I," muttered John. He had said this before on seeing other brave individuals facing their fears, but he had never had a girlfriend like Anne before. He needed to overcome this and deal with his irrational fear. He marched stalwartly to the bathroom and latched the door. He stood long and hard and gazed at the porcelain potty that assaulted his dreams and shamed him. He felt a loosening of his bowels as he regarded the object, which he welcomed, as it would make the straining less painful. John unzipped his fly, let down his trousers, and settled down resolutely on the toilet. He sat there, hearing the slight static hiss of the toilet cleaner Anne had just used, as it descaled and purified the bowl. His usual feeling of panic bubbled inside him, as he fought the instinct to leap off the toilet, screaming that something was coming to get him. For the next few moments, he heaved and grunted as he struggled with his mammoth burden, and finally he felt the splash as the package hit the water and sent cold droplets up his backside. It was only when he heard an even greater sibilant hiss from the toilet bowl and felt a searing pain stretching his gut, reaching up to what felt like his chest as his insides were ripped out, that he thought with a sense of relief, "The waiting is over. I don't have to worry anymore. Carrie Benton kicked off her shoes, did a little twirl around her bedroom, and sank gladly into the armchair beside the bay window that looked out onto the street. She gazed down dreamily at the road below, still seeing Gerald's tanned face smiling up at her, still feeling the gentle touch of his hand against her arm. She decided there and then that it had been the perfect evening. Nothing could mar this, she mused, and it would be even better in the morning when he came to collect her for breakfast, and they would share the whole day, not just the evening. Tusker chose that moment to make his entrance, his pitiful meow shaking her out of the dream she was currently in. Carrie gathered the cat in her arms. "Hi there, Catikins. Who's hungry then?" She coomed into his fur. He arched his back and playfully shot a paw at her. She giggled and set him down on the bed, where he regarded her with an air of suspicion. "I'm going to fix you some food," she teased, "right after I wash my face and get my dressing gown on. You'll just have to wait a while." Carrie switched on the ensuite bathroom light and hummed to herself as she picked up the facial wash from the shelf. She heard Tusker scratching at the cover of her bed in what she assumed was an act of frustration at being thwarted out of his food. "Not long," she sang out. "Then I'll get you dinner, and I'll tell you all about Gerald and our date." Carrie heard Tusker hiss, as if to say, "Damn your date! Just fix me some food!" And she heard the soft plop as the cat jumped off the bed. A minute later she shivered as she felt a sharp, cold draught blowing through the bathroom. "Darned cat," she thought. "He must have squeezed through the bedroom door to the landing and left the door open." Carrie smeared the facial wash over her face, mixing it with water from the tap. The soap spuds bubbled on her skin, and as she splashed warm water in her face, she thought she heard someone behind her. She looked into the mirror, her face dripping water. Gerald stood there, framed in the entrance to the bathroom. She peered at him through a veil of soapy tears, thinking at first it was just a trick of the light, or perhaps some water in the eyes making her vision blurry and unstable. It was only when she felt the quick, bloody pain across her throat and smelled the scent of his brute aftershave mixed with her blood that she realized, too late, it was Gerald, and that her dream date had just turned into a nightmare. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please subscribe, like and favourite so you never miss an episode. In the description you'll find links to the author pages, as well as links to the stories and music that make this podcast possible.